So we started the day with a great presentation on trends. We're going to end the day with a great presentation on trends. Susan Yashinsky did a phenomenal presentation last year, and we asked her to come back and wrap it up for us. She spent the first half of her career in the home division at a very large retailer, and the last 16 years with Sphere Trending as their vice president of innovation, which is another really cool title. So I'm turning it over to you, Susan.
Another advantage when you work for a small company, you can make up your titles. So somebody else had said that. So I know everybody's anxious to kind of get up and move around. So today we're going to talk about the adventurous home. Sphere Trending is a future strategy firm. We study what's going on in the world, macros, consumers, society, technology, home, commercial entities, and then we drive that into design, architecture, product innovation, and social engagement. So I have to hope I can read this. I can read this. It's a great teleprompter. So what makes an adventurous home? Well, part of it, as we go to these live, work, play environments, are our aspirations balanced with traditions. We're very aspirational as a society. Through our phone, we can see everything. We want everything. It was a great exercise to try to build the affordable home and try to say, okay, what would we have to take away to bring this in, and what can we add that are the new nuances coming in? We had the advantage of working with Clayton Homes for many years, and instead of stripping away from the high and going down, try building a single wide that's going to retail for $40,000 and make it an incredible millennial home, and then start adding amenities back. Expectations with excitement have to be balanced, and we'll talk more about that because we're all dreamers and we really want it all. And then volatility, and I think this is really a key point. We're entering an era, an economic era, where there's more volatility. We're going to see more swings, more dramatic swings for a lot of reasons. We're going to have automation take over some jobs. We certainly have the splitting into the haves and the have-nots. It may not look so on paper, but when you look at the debt, when you look at millennials spending 40% of their income on housing compared to baby boomers, that was maybe 23, 24%, plus their student debt, huge, huge things. Aging of society because we have record low birth rates. And so the most important thing your company has to have is agility. We used to make 5-year plans, 10-year plans, and say, okay, we did our homework. We're going to hit it, and we probably did hit it 20, 30 years ago. But these plans are no longer a map. They have to be a compass, and you're not pushing strategy out, you're pulling inspiration in. Because things are going to change, things are going to disrupt you. Disruption is going to come from totally outside your industry. Somebody mentioned BuzzFeed before. BuzzFeed just opened an incredible retail store in New York City. BuzzFeed's not in the retail business, they're a media company. An incredible store called Camp that's not only experiential, but they kind of rethought a business model. They're renting out, or not renting, they're selling advertising space in this store. MasterCard being their first sponsor. So MasterCard's getting credit for some of the experiences that are coming in the store for an 8-week period. So finding kind of new streams of revenue, because all of you are going to be in the service business in some way or another. And all of you are going to be disrupted by many different things. So let's talk about and we'll talk more about that. Let's talk about the consumers. I do like that we're moving away from demographics and we're moving into cultural graphics, or culture graphics as it's being called at Southwest this week. Because there's a lot more commonalities across the generations, but there's also some unique differences that your marketing strategies have to be aware of, and certainly your product development strategies. So newest generation is 0 to 10. We're not showing them global from birth. But they are important because millennials will have the closest relationship with their kids that we've ever seen, and so we're seeing play come into living environments. And HAO Design in Taiwan is doing incredible designs because millennials want to be with their kids. They don't want them locked in a room with messy toys. Gen Z, our next homeowner generation, we use the word resilient. The generation that saw their parents lose their homes, saw their parents lose their jobs during the Great Recession. They have more in common with World War II generation than millennials. They're an incredible generation, and I think what you have to understand in this room is that they're going to grow up in small spaces for a long period of time. They're going to live in their parents' house, in their bedroom. They may get to a backyard dwelling because we're starting to change the zoning laws city by city. They may then go to a co-living experience, which they're very comfortable with, having a very small space but living in the communal areas. They may buy a tiny home. Clayton Homes building, tiny homes in Nashville now, and partnering with HUD on what the next affordable home is going to be. And if they rent, they're going to rent 3 to 6 years. So when they finally get into the homeowner market, they're not looking for a 2,500 square foot house. They're looking for a small home that can live very, very large and live very flexible. Millennials are the influencer generation. They're influencing, mentoring generations up. They look to them because it's the first generation that was brought up with technology. And they're also disruptors. Just this last panel, rent to own. They're bringing new business models into the marketplace. And they're doing it in very unique ways across every category, across every channel. So some of you have mentioned Katera. Katera, very interesting. I kind of think of it as a startup until I realized this year they'll do between $2 and $3 billion in revenue because they're so strong internationally as well. They are getting into residential. Do not assume that they're just commercial. They have very, very aggressive plans. And by the way, they just announced in their press conference a week ago that they're vertically integrating. So now they will have Katera windows that can be delivered on site within a week. They now are coming out with a new private label called, what is it called? Kova. Yes. And Kova will have carpeting and tile and plumbing. And so if someone loves Katera and loves the prefab concept, they don't really care what the brands are. They actually have that trust. Generation X, it's kind of funny. Time Magazine did an article a few weeks ago on generations, and they forgot to even mention Gen X. Everybody ignores Gen X, but these are the family-raising people. They have the highest median income right now. They have the highest debt. They don't save a dime, but they have the highest needs. Only 59% home ownership, much less than baby boomers or prime timers at the same life stage. So what are we doing to increase mobility among Gen X? What are we doing to incentivize? That's a lot of rent-to-own or rentals that we're leaving without going into home ownership. Baby boomers, everybody underestimates the power of baby boomers and overestimates the power of millennials. Baby boomers dominate 70% of discretionary income. However, 40% of baby boomers don't have one dime for retirement. Baby boomers are now starting to spend on health care. They're helping aging parents, adult kids. They have a lot of kind of criteria on their discretionary income. And that which they have left, they want to travel. Experiences, 65% don't want another home. And of the 35% who do, many of those want to rent. So how do we make up this volume? How are we going to have Gen X, millennials, and soon to be Gen Z make up the volume that for 20 years we've been dependent on the baby boomers? So to have an adventurous home, you have to be a global traveler. Traveling leaves you speechless. It turns you into a storyteller. Everyone is globally connected through their phone. In fact, when you research with Gen Z, they talk about they identify globally. They don't even identify locally. And so what is the inspiration that's going on around the world? And what can we take from that to bring into the future home? It's incredible that Alibaba was on the runway in New York Fashion Week in 2018. First time we've had Chinese brands, apparel brands, in the US, because millennials and Gen Z love these brands. We're becoming connected in new ways. And this whole concept of rent to own, when we talk about the future and that you might be in the service business, IKEA is now starting to rent office furniture. And their next step is to rent kitchens. You're a builder. Why wouldn't you have a rental part as people are staying in your home now when they buy it 15 years? Is their goal to stay in that home? Not 3 to 4 years and flip it. What if I get into that home as a single and 10 years later I actually become a great cook and I want to change some of the cabinetry? Starting to unframe perception and really starting to think differently is going to be critical in your industry. Because if you don't do it, somebody else will, and they'll do it very quickly. You know, everybody thought Airbnb was a joke. It was two guys who couldn't afford the rent. And there was a big conference going on in San Francisco. They had a room with an air mattress, not even a bed. And they said, well, you know what? The only way we can pay rent, let's see if somebody can't find a hotel room for the conference. And they'll rent it out. And that was Airbnb. When Casper put a mattress in a box, every traditional mattress company laughed. They thought it was ridiculous. They thought, well, maybe they'll get 10 people in an urban area to buy it. There's not a mattress company in the US now, 2 years later, that doesn't sell a mattress in a box. Things are happening very quickly. There's a lot of diversity among the homeowners. You've all talked about it, single homeowners, people buying together, co-living, co-renting, everything. And we have life stage shakeups. You know, it used to be we had kids, adults, and, you know, people were going to die soon. I mean, there were big kind of life stages. But now we have kippers, kids in parents' pockets eroding retirement, if you haven't heard that one. We have little kids. We have preteens. We have teens. We have young adults. We have adults. And boomers are giving us 1 or 2 more life stages. If we're aging in place in these homes or staying longer, we have to constantly be able to reinvent these homes as our life stages change. So how do you rethink things? Conceptually, this is a concept for a desktop, or cooktop, technology that stays on the wall until you're using it, and then comes onto the counter space. Probably the best example of outside-the-box thinking, which is so simple, it's kind of everybody slapping their head going, oh my God, how did I not think of this? This is IKEA's Ubik. And it's an office chair. So if you want to buy this office chair, you go into IKEA. It's coming out in a few months. You purchase the chair. You take the chair home in your car. But before you leave, your entire body is scanned. 2 weeks later, you get this insert that goes in the seat of your office chair. And now you have perfect posture because they've used your biometric data to create this chair. Now, can a Hayworth or a Steelcase ever make an office chair the same way? Total disruption. We shape our buildings, and afterwards they shape us. I love that quote by Winston Churchill because we're all personal storytellers, and your job is to enable people to tell their personal story within this home environment. And so we see more open shelving. We see kitchens becoming beautiful. And what's really interesting is the kitchen really hasn't had a major change in probably 100 years. We talked, I think in October when we were here, we talked about the wellness kitchen. We talked about Regen, that neighborhood in the Netherlands where every home has their own greenhouse to grow their own food. Now, why do we want to grow our own food? We just came back from Ambiente and KBIS and the Housewares Show. Well, we want to grow it because millennials love to garden, and gardening's uptrending among every age group. We love freshness when we do cook. And by the way, we're really scared about our food source. Go look up the number of food recalls in the last 2 years. We want more control over what we eat. And so the wellness kitchen is coming in, and also the new news is we're deconstructing the open space environments. And last year at the Milan Furniture Fair, Fantini, which is an upscale kitchen manufacturer, put the kitchen right in the middle of the home, of the living space. Not at the end, right in the middle. And by the way, how brilliant as a manufacturer, because now they're making tables, and they're supplying rugs, and all the furniture that goes around it, not just limiting themselves to kitchen cabinetry. Now, could you sell that today? Probably not. Could you sell that in 5 to 8 years, or 10 years when Gen Z comes into the marketplace? 1,000% so. We're deconstructing the space so we have more flexibility. And with that, we're bringing color, we're bringing design, we're bringing more ways to tell our personal story. So we're all chameleon hunters. Are you building homes for tomorrow's domestic transformer? The person who wants this home to live larger, who wants this home space to be able to change within a day, not just in a life stage, but within a day. So fast fashion is coming to the home. I know a lot of people made jokes about yoga pants. It is true in apparel. The only thing that is selling is yoga pants. People just don't care. What they care about is their home. Millennials, 70% of millennials spend more time at home than prior generations. They love to entertain. And you know, millennials, every day is a holiday. They've made up more, we work with American Greetings, they've made up more holidays than you can ever imagine. They're all about connectivity and celebrating with friends and family. And as we said, we're deconstructing the home, and we're also going to kinetic movements. So you saw one of the examples in the IBS home where by a press of a button, things would change and move. So kinetic movement can be manually, or it can be with technology. This happens to be a multi-family dwelling on the bottom in Beirut. So when you are entertaining, you want to open up space, you actually push the structure out to the outside of the building. And when you want privacy, you push the structure, the wall, back in. And the other thing about being a chameleon hunter, which you all have to be, is you have to understand trends are converging across industries all at the same time. We used to have big gaps. It'd be on the runway. And then years later, we'd see it in the home. And then years later, it would go into transportation. We now see it in cars, automotive. We see it in electronics. We see it in apparel. We see it in the home. We see it in every industry at the same time, whether it's color or pattern or finishes. So again, agility to market is so critical. And every one of you is a trend tracker. What's the most important thing about Coachella? It's the apparel that the celebrities are wearing. You literally can see it in the store within 5 days if you're direct to consumer and they're picking it up. How do you be a trend tracker? Everywhere you go, you're tracking trends. You go to a restaurant, take a peek in the kitchen, see what they're doing, look at how they're serving to understand what the kitchen of the future will be. When you go to a hotel, look at the common areas, because hotels are doing so many creative things as they open up to the community and are not just for visitors. When you go to an office building, understand how they're using space in different ways. And understand culture. Somebody talked about the condo effect and the fact that we want storage and we want organization because we want serenity. 18% of Americans are actually officially diagnosed with severe anxiety. Read the paper. We're all anxious. This is like tough times, and part of it is because we're very globally connected, and we see everything. And we can see the news 24/7. It was kind of nicer when we could only watch the news at 6 o'clock. We weren't thinking about it all day. And so understanding what's going on, the Kitchen and Bath Show in Europe is going on this week. They're talking about the lifestyle bathroom where furniture is coming into the master bath because that's our last kind of private retreat, and we're expanding the functions that go into it. And all homeowners are experienced pioneers. That really is what the adventure home is now. Anything we can do on the outside of the home, we want to do inside. If we can go to a great restaurant, we want to have a gourmet kitchen. If we can go watch a great movie, we want to have the movie theater. If we can go have a great workout, we want to have, the gym in our home. I think the most important thing you have to understand what Gen Z is going to bring in a new space is really going to be the maker space. Gen Z are tinkerers. Again, they're like the World War II generation. They love to do things with their hands and make things. And so maker spaces will be the next evolution of bringing kind of leisure activities into this work, live, play environment. The stories we tell about our things become the soundtracks to our home. And if you're ever looking for good research, IKEA every year does a great global research study about the emotion of the home. So you can look it up online and get their last two. And so what do we know about experienced pioneers? Well, they're willing to try new things. These younger generations who want to travel, who want to have it all, they're dreamers, but they don't have the income. And guess what? 40% of the baby boomers don't have the income for this next life stage. So rent to own is going to be important across all generations. Co-living spaces, there's 168, I think, now in the United States. On the bottom, this is HAO Design, who's bringing play into the environment. We're bringing, workout into the bathroom. So again, any kind of experiences that we can bring into this home environment is critical. So technology is a useful servant, but a dangerous master. So I think it was Megan brought up, we always say the same thing. If you're in the technology world, if you work for Google or Amazon, you don't put a voice assistant in your home. Never, ever, ever, ever. They're making the devices and they won't put them in. 1 in 10 Americans had identity theft last year. We're now putting Alexa in lighting, and it's seamless. And we're putting 2 or 3 voice assistants in our home. I don't know if you guys have people at South by Southwest this week. We have people there, and the whole topic is the danger of the World Wide Web. Now, the creator of the World Wide Web, which is 30 years old this year, has put it really succinctly in his talk. He said, we have been in adolescence, and now we have to go to maturity. There's great, great things about connectivity and technology, not going away, going to continue to be in the home in new ways. But there's a lot of negative that we have to stop doing and start controlling in new ways. A huge, huge topic, so many articles in the last 2 weeks. So what kind of technology do we want in our home? We want predictive technology. This is where AI is so important. We want the smart car to talk to the smart home. If you're anxious in your future smart car, they'll automatically adjust the music and adjust the temperature of the car to kind of calm you down. And by the way, in the future, the car will let your smart home know you're a little anxious when you get into the house. Let's also have the same kind of music, the same kind of temperature. Things that are predictive, things that we don't have to think about and aren't dangerous to identity theft or anything else is what we want to bring into the home environment. And then on the bottom is this. This is a new community in the Netherlands. They actually partnered with a tech startup called Unsense. I think it's opening in 2022, 23. They're going to have 1,500 homes over 10 years. Sustainable, all types of sustainability. They're going to control all their waste. They're going to control all their energy. The only community in the world that is also going to control all their data. Very, very interesting, something to definitely look up. So as a community scout, what are we looking for? And I love what Tesla said, unframe expectations. You don't have to be a transport provider today to embed mobility in your community as a service amenity. Who are you going to partner with for creative partnerships? Tesla maybe would have a fleet of autonomous vehicles that would be part of your community. IKEA is partnering with Adidas. Uncommon partnerships, 1 + 1 = 5, to bring new types of home furnishings into the market in 2021 that are all about fitness but are beautiful. IKEA partnered with NASA for Grow Your Own and new types of technology that we can bring into our kitchen. Who are you going to partner with that will bring you speed to market, but most importantly also relevance, and bring you technology that you don't have, but that you can partner and combine the two. So what is the community of the future? It's about exploration. It's about engagement, involvement, enjoyment. These are all kind of adventurous terms. This is a multifamily, again, in the Netherlands. Every apartment has their own kind of garden space, but also they have on the main level an area where you can forage for raspberries and whatever fruit of the time is there, and bring that fruit back into your home. They have a hydroponic garden, and they have aquaponics. We're taking the agrihood to another level. And so again, you can never just sit on what's out there. You constantly have to be exploring, evolving for the next level of relevance. So why do we love Joanna Gaines? We love Joanna Gaines because we think she's really the one who brought emotion back into the home. For the baby boomers, that McMansion was really about stylized for show. And now we're stylized for personal enjoyment and for function. And so her reveal is always exciting. Her home is customized to what people are looking for. The way she's selling that home is inspiration for your sales office. Social is so important. 45%, is it 40? I'm sorry. 45% of millennials bought a home unseen last year. Now, part of that is due, we have very tight existing inventory. We know 90% of the homes they bought were existing homes, and they had to act quickly. But also, they're very comfortable online. They're very comfortable. So we heard a lot of great discussion about new ways you have to market to these consumers. And by the way, as Gen X and millennials become the people you're dealing with in all these other companies that make up your ecosystem of delivery, you deal with them very differently. You sell to them very differently. It's a very, very different marketplace. Influencers are huge to them, as people said. There's a new company coming out called Solar. And solar will allow you to buy a product from an influencer platform. So if somebody's posting something on YouTube and they're in their home and they're using an appliance and you go, well, I love that influencer. I don't really care about the brand. I want to use what they're using. You can buy it right then. And this solar platform will be the middleman between getting the product to you. And so understanding the world's changing again in very many ways. Leisure adventure. To check my time. It's a wild, wonderful world. Follow your heart, let your adventure begin. So the home is now about our personal hobbies, our personal leisure activities, what we want to do. If I love charcuterie, then I want some of my kitchen cabinetry to reflect that. If I love spices, I want that. If I want a music room. And our hobbies and our leisure will change over time. Well-being, probably one of the most important things we can talk about because it's proactive from age 5 to 95. It's a big word. It's not just physical well-being, it's mental well-being. Loneliness is an American disease. We tend to think of technology as connecting us, but truthfully, technology has really isolated us in many ways. 89% of kids under the age of 10 trust a voice assistant and actually interact with it as a human being. That's a very scary thought. It's a very scary thought. We have to bring some humanity back in. And part of this anxiety we have, and part of this loneliness epidemic, is that technology has isolated us. And so communities are coming back in a big way. And building communities for connectivity is huge. And millennial parents get this. Every time they go to a pediatrician, they're told no screen time under the age of 3. Absolutely not. We have teenagers who are more comfortable texting than talking to a real human being. These are big societal issues. There's a big, big conversation all over South by Southwest. The number one topic everybody was addressing. How do we use technology and use all the benefits of technology, but not lose humanity? We talked a lot about fear factor. One of the things that I didn't hear talked about today was home prevention. And I know many of you referenced the company in Japan. You can go visit this company. They have a whole test lab. You can stand inside a home, and they will actually create the experience of an earthquake, and you can understand how their new building materials won't allow the home to even move. There's a survey that's been done every 10 years, and for the first time in 2018, 3 of our fears as a US society are environmental fears. Fear of a tornado, fear of an earthquake, fear of a fire. I mean, anyone from California can relate to that. So the biggest new growth in remodeling is home prevention materials. And the biggest new nuance that's going to come into your industry is people are going to go, how is this home protecting me? What kind of new building materials are you using? There's so much going on with new technology. Max talked about the air purifying curtains that IKEA's coming out with. Everybody addressing this. And now it resonates with consumers because part of well-being is safety and security. And whether you believe in climate change or you don't believe in climate change, no one can deny that a lot of the movement we've had as a society is to the southeast. These are hot, humid climates that are having more extreme weather. And then certainly what we've visualized on the West Coast as well. And this is a great study from, I'm sorry, I have to look at it, Maryland Center, where they talk about many cities in the US in the future will experience climates that have no modern equivalent in North America. The past may not necessarily predict the future for us. And so really understanding some of these new building materials and what they can do for our homes is critical. Everyone's an eco-prospector. There's a raised awareness among young generations. They're taught sustainability in school, and by the way, they get it. They get it. You know, there's a reason that all the high school kids in France did a march out last week because they didn't feel the country was doing enough on environmental awareness. They're going to inherit it. Baby boomers are going to be fine. We're going to die and not have to worry about it. These kids are going to inherit these issues. They get it. And so they're not just asking, they're demanding sustainable strategies. They're demanding it. And if all things are equal, and they see a prefab that's built with 1 garbage can of waste, and they see a built that's got trailers of waste being hauled off, who do you think they're going to go to? They're very sensitized to this. The world has finite resources. We have to understand this. But the economy is built on the idea of infinite growth. So now we have to find new ways to work. All kinds of materials, some just simple. The whitest, coolest paint. In California, you guys may know, they're painting the roads white to absorb the heat. More of the extreme kind of variations we're seeing. Now people are using this paint for buildings or for homes. We love surface design in the UK because it's a very interesting design show where architects and designers are playing with new building materials that can be sustainable, but also not necessarily, they're not all sustainable, a lot of different looks. But this year there was a lot about sustainability in the way we could mimic looks, but have a sustainable product. I can tell you we go to we monitor 60 trade shows every year. We go to many, many trade shows, and sustainable materials at Heimtex, at Cologne, at High Point, at Maison, at Ambiente, at KBIS, at IBS. This is the topic. This is the topic that we're all talking about. So do you have a circular economy strategy? What are you doing as a brand? Because everyone's going to want to know. And sensory wanderer, why is design so important to millennials? Well, one, they're exposed to it, so it's the first time we've had such a design-savvy generation. But they also have a heightened awareness visually. So think about what they do. They're looking at screens all day. What's the stat? Average person scrolls through 300 feet of mobile content a day, almost the length of a football field. So one, when you talk about creative marketing strategies, yes, you do have to stand out from the clutter because we are all tuning off. There's just too much, and there's too much that's not unique, that doesn't stand out. But millennials have horrible hearing. They grew up with earbuds, which is so dangerous. Half of them will need hearing aids when they turn 50. But their visual sense is so astute, so whatever you do in color, and not just color on the interior, they're excited about color on the exterior. It's the first time we've actually had a generation that's as interested in the exterior architecture as they are on the interior decor. Anything you can do with shape, anything you can do with texture or the illusion of texture is critical to them. And they will notice it. And so again, we're seeing these beautiful materials, particularly in the kitchen. We've had white kitchens forever. White kitchens aren't going away. They are still extremely popular. But the new news coming in is the warmth, is the woods, and these beautiful stones, and these beautiful mix of materials. And again, because the kitchen is part of our living space. And also soundscaping. These are cabinetry that's soundscape, because when you build open space environments, we have the big noise factor, which is something we don't tend to really think about as much as we should. And then nostalgia shapeshifter. We always look to the past, but we reinvent for the future. Very true in architecture. We know that Tudor is popular, but it's modern Tudor. It's not dark brick, it's white brick. We know Craftsman is popular, but it's modern Craftsman. Who would have thought Victorian would show up? We all thought we buried that one. Millennials love Victorian. Why? Because there's so many elements. It's so visually interesting. And remember, they grew up in baby boomer McMansions that were pretty sterile, architecturally as well as even homogeneous in interior design. So we look to the past to ground us, but we reinvent for modern times. And so we all want homes. Everybody aspires to own a home. Gen Z actually more than even millennials. We're just getting into the home market longer. We're living longer. 1 in 8 of us will live to be 100. There's many more life stages. So you have to create many more types of housing that are going to meet these kind of criteria. But they don't care if it's built in a factory. In fact, they actually would love it. And so when you look at Katerra, when you look at what Clayton Homes is doing, there are so many interesting nuances. When you see what's going on in Japan, you have to know these things because they are going to come into this market at a much faster pace than I think most people assume. And then nostalgia isn't always good. I will tell you on the runway, 80s fashion is coming back, so let's all just vomit right now because nobody wants that back. So it's not always good. And very lastly, you have to be a memory creator. That's what your job is, whether you're a designer, an architect, a builder, a developer. You're creating memories. That's what the home is. It's our most precious thing. And purpose is huge. How can it live large? How can it be flexible? But are you creating happiness? Are you creating experiences? That's why the living space is really the lot line. We're expanding out to the outdoors, and that one picture we showed you had the window seats on the outside. We're having front porches. We're living in the backyard. We're living on the side yard. We're living on second floor balconies. We're living on rooftops. We're adding more exits and entries. 40% of Americans will be freelancers in another 10 years. What do we have to do to have a private entrance if you're going to have your workspace right in there? How about Toll Brothers in their newest luxury home? I love this. Building the lockers for home delivery right into the home. It's on the exterior of the house, and they have large, medium, and small. Because there's no one, I don't care how secure you think your phone is, that wants a stranger coming into their house to drop off a package. So solving some of these new nuances of the 21st century. Somebody mentioned Ford before. I also think the incredible thing about Ford is taking their expertise and applying it in something that they're not even into. And so we saw the bed, which was kind of funny, but interesting. This is the dog bed that they came up with, taking their noise-canceling technology so the dogs, when there's a storm, don't freak out. So who do you want to partner with? Who will give you something unique that's also relevant to bring to market? And kind of the last quote, which I really like, is in a world where standing still ceased to be an option years ago, companies are realizing that even pausing for a breath is an iffy proposition. Consumers don't, and they expect their brands to keep pace. So agility to market. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.